better late than never. So this is something I'm very, very late to. This is Lackadaisy, which is an animated pilot that came out, I think, in 2023. So like I said, very, very late to it. But there was some news that came out recently that they got picked up by Glitch. And Glitch, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, but just in case you're not, they've done stuff like Amazing Digital Circus, and recently on Knights of Guinevere, they've done Murder Drones, all these big hit shows. Or shows that are soon going to be big hits. I mean, a lot of them just have pilots, but even the pilots, are huge, huge hits. And Lackadaisy was one of these pilots that was made. It was crowdfunded and just absolutely blew up. I think at the time recording this, it's like 17 million views, I think is what it's at. And I saw it back then, and when I did Knights of Guinevere, somebody was saying in the comments, oh man, he's talking about a lot of these YouTube animated pilots and shows and such. What's next, Lackadaisy? And I thought, did I not do that? I really Mandela affected that I did a video on Lackadaisy, and I didn't. So, so this is going to be my thoughts on it, because I guess people do like when I talk about YouTube, well, YouTube in general, I don't talk about much. I went to a whole thing about why I usually don't, but it has to be something I really think is worth talking about, and usually in a positive way, because I like encouraging YouTubers, especially in YouTube animation. Online animation is one of the last few places where you'll see hand-drawn animation. A lot of people go CG nowadays, and I do get it. I understand, especially from a business standpoint. And a lot of general audiences seem to like CG over hand-drawn, but I'm still a big fan of hand-drawn. I mean, look at all that. Obviously, I'm a big fan of hand-drawn. And it's just kind of my preference, even though CG is phenomenal. I'm not going to diss it. But yes, I think there's room for both. You can do both. And online animation is still keeping it alive, and it's not only thriving artistically, but it's thriving with an audience. It shows that there is an audience that really, really gets into this, and that's why you have like Amazon picking up Has Been Hotel, or you got Glitch picking up, Lackadaisy here, and then you also have Netflix picking up Amazing Digital Circus. I mean, there's like Halloween costumes of like Amazing Digital Circus and everything. So there's like, you can see how big this is becoming. So I never did talk about the pilot for Lackadaisy, and I figure, about 2 years later is about a fair amount of time to let it sit. And the funny thing is, I saw it when it came out, and I did enjoy it. I'm glad I watched it again, though. I watched it again for this review, because there's a couple other things I noticed, and there was something I did not like the first time I saw it, but watching it again, it's grown on me. I actually do enjoy it, even though I still have some issues with it. For those who don't know, I'm sure you do if you're watching this video, but this is pretty much the days of Prohibition, but they're all cats, for whatever reason. But it looks cool. They're drawn great. They have great personalities, and I feel like sometimes, whether intentional or not, they do work in sort of these I don't know what you call it, catisms or cat instincts in there. Like there's one scene where one takes a shot of some alcohol and just all the fur frizzles, like even like the hair on her head, like frizzles and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, it's very cat-like. I always kind of say they get the zoomies quite a bit. You'll have, one cat be very suave and elegant, and then just suddenly go psycho out of nowhere, like just almost like a switch turns on or something. And with some of the characters, you can tell they're building up is something. With others, you can kind of tell this is just their personality. And again, I have no idea if that's intentional or not, but I think it does kind of play into the fact that they are felines, and there are things we associate with felines. And again, during Prohibition, cats are very, suave and elegant. They can have fun and everything, but they're also very sneaky. They're also very good at, sneaking into places and walking in areas that are very difficult to get into and everything. So it does make sense. It's not something where it's like, I don't know, just make them cats for whatever reason. Like, no, there is a little bit of a connection there that I think works. So the animation on this obviously is very, very good, like a lot of web animation is, and this was very well crowdfunded, and they just threw in a lot into this. And what I like is that even though you can tell it's web animation, it does have a similar feel, you wouldn't look at and necessarily say, oh, that's Hell of a Boss, oh, that's Amazing Digital Circus, or say this has enough of its own feel, even though I think some of the same people from at least one of those shows. I think Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. Are connecting there too. I think there's a lot of crossover. And I like that I can look at, I can say, man, that's very flowing. It has real respect for, the line work and everything. But I don't necessarily look at it and say, oh, they're moving exactly like Hell of a Boss. And the funny thing about it is that watching it again, it did kind of dawn in my head how I remember really getting into the first half because there's a chase scene in there and it's animated beautifully. And then maybe it's not even the second half, maybe it's the last third. It's not super long. It's only like 27 minutes, I think. Is much slower, and it's mostly just them hanging out at a bar talking about either the good old days or what will hopefully again be the good old days. They're at Speakeasy. It's not doing that great, and part of it is they're not getting much alcohol there, and the alcohol they do get is not great. And it's just sort of them talking, and there is comedy going on and certainly exploring character and such, but it's very, very slow. And again, I feel like you compare that to something like Hell of a Boss, which I love the hell out of, by the way. I do really, really love that show. Where something always, even if they're just sitting down talking, something always has to be moving really big and really crazy, and that's not necessarily the case here. These are even though they're very flowing, they're very smoothly animated, they don't always have to be really, really big, and that is nice. You can have a section where they're just sitting there talking, and I think when you have something like that as well, it does indicate, all right, this isn't just kid stuff. It has to be bouncy all the time. And again, I'm definitely not saying Hell of a Boss is that or Has Been Hotel, but I think there is this judgment from a lot of people that animation, particularly hand-drawn animation, that's just for kids. And yes, it has come a long way. There's a ton of adults that watch whatever, Family Guy and Simpsons and so forth, but I think there is still, they're like, well, okay, there's that, but the rest is kid stuff. So I think that's definitely come much further than it has in the past. But yes, there are people that have that prejudice there. So I like there's something where you can just show them sitting, talking, being straightforward. You're just reading the expressions on their faces. And sometimes it can be a little cartoony. It's not like there's no reason to animate this, but it can also be much more reserved, and it can be slower, and it can be quieter. And that is nice to see, especially in a pilot. And on that note, it's both a pro and a con, because I talked about Knights of Guinevere a few weeks ago, and I was saying I liked it. I wish it was like a 2-part pilot, though. I wish there was a part 2, because I want to see more explored with it, which is a good problem. You want more out of it, where I do feel like something like Has Been Hotel, they threw so much into that first pilot, which is not to say that not just the animation, the actual story, it's like they were setting up, hey, here's a lot of stuff we can do with this, and it doesn't want you to forget, we could go this route, we could go this route, we could go this route. Where with this, there's definitely routes you can see it going and they're setting up, but it's not as in your face. And again, the pro of that is, well, you do want to know more, and there is a little bit more of a maturity to it and a little bit of a slow-moving pace to it that's very nice to see, and it does feel a little bit more adult, but at the same time, you do get more excited for something like Has Been Hotel, where it's like, man, just, you're like hyped about where this can go and all the crazy stuff that could come after, it's like a party kind of thing. So there's pros and cons to both of that, and I felt the same thing about Knights of Guinevere. The style itself, like I said, is beautifully drawn. I like you can see the sketch lines in there. I like they leave that in. I'm assuming a lot of this is done digitally. It's still hand-drawn, but it's digital. But then something that was interesting is that it did show in the credits, which I'm glad I stayed for this time. I don't think I stayed the first time. It did show the process of doing the animation, even sort of the earlier sketches. And I'm kicking myself for not staying the first time, because I love that stuff, and I love seeing when it's showing all the people that worked on it and stuff. It shows the work that went into it, and that's just a taste. I mean, not even the majority of it, not even close to the majority, but I love seeing little stuff like that. And there are things that look like, there's like the pencil drawings and it's sort of light and everything, but again, I mean, technology has come a long way, so it is probably still digital. That'd be my guess. So the fact that they're even trying to still incorporate that, sort of like the old school 60s Disney animated films where you could see, they did the Xerox method, and you could see a little bit more of the line drawings and the layout and stuff like that, which in some things doesn't work. In other things it really does. Something like Robin Hood or Sword in the Stone, I feel like for the most part it really works. And I feel like it works here too, because it is taking place during Prohibition. There is going to be, they're not super technologically advanced, so that sketchiness does kind of make sense. The one thing that, here, I'll hold off to that. I was going to say the one thing I couldn't really get into. I want to talk about the characters real fast. All the characters, again, have good setups. I like them. I want to see what they're going to do with them. I like the way they interact off each other. I like the fact that there are protagonists and antagonists, but they're all outlaws, it seems like. Or either there's some characters that might not be outlaws, but they're clearly doing bad. They're clearly the villains of this, and I like setting up where that's going to go. And, the guy behind the chair, that's always a famous, thing back then, those kind of movies where there's always someone, not behind the chair, behind the desk, the guy behind the chair. I'm getting everything wrong today. The guy behind the desk. There we go. I was combining chair and desk. Anyway, the guy behind the desk. That's something Roger Ebert always talked about, the Coen Brothers movies. He says, I love there's always a guy behind a desk. And I like that too. I like there's just somebody sitting there, the big person in charge, who's usually up to no good, but is respected or has the power or whatever. And I like trying to figure out what that person is up to. Is this person like, you see alcohol in there, so it's like, okay, well, is he running his own prohibition thing and these other people are getting in the way of that? They're easing in on his business? Or is he like a politician? Or does he work for the police or something like that? He's really crooked or something? Like what could this be? So I like that setup. But again, it's not in your face. There is a little bit of like, well, it's just putting a little seed in there, a little hint of like, well, this is something we could explore if you want to see more. And the other characters, I think, work very well off each other. Again, obviously animated great, but they do have personality. The only point where I feel like maybe a few too many characters were squished in was that last third where they're at the bar. And again, they do have personality, but I think we spend so much time with these other characters, being chased around, by these assassins and this guy, with glasses. Yeah, I know what I said. But, who's trying to follow them for his boss. And, definitely the assassins have a lot of chemistry. The driver assassin, by the way, clearly the best actor out of all of them. I mean, the other actors are good, but this one just running circles around him, just so talented. Whoever discovered that talent early on was probably a very, very smart person indeed. It's Malcolm. That's I don't want you to look up and be like, who was it? It's Malcolm. He's in this. But in fact, if you want to see something that both him and another actor from this are in, Benny Latham, they are both in the fanscription we did of Princess and the Frog, and she does a fantastic Tiana. And, I forget her name, the blind lady in there. You'd swear it's two totally different people, but she does both the voices. Fantastic. He's in it too. So you should see that if you just want to see something else that they're in. Anyway, but yes, I want to know more about these characters. I like the chemistry that they have. So I'll get to the one thing that originally I didn't care for, and I've opened up a little bit more to it, and that's the main character. Watching it again, the main character has an issue that I have with the movie Cats Don't Dance on our Cat project. And the main character in that is just too wide-eyed, too whimsical, too passionate about life. And here's the thing. The reason those characters are usually so difficult to do and difficult to pull off without them becoming too corny is because they have been done so many times. They're the lovable scamp. They get in trouble, but they have just this joy of what they do, and they're so optimistic. Let's go get them and everything. And it's a great type of character, but it's done a lot. And I think when you hear the voice of the actor doing this, I think to myself, boy, this voice probably sounded beautiful in a recording booth, would probably be great on stage because you have to go really big and, get to the people in the back row, and even on radio where you can't see the person, so you have to emote a little bit more. I think it'd be great. With this, the voice does match, but I think it needs to be taken down a few notches. Early on, that's what I was thinking to myself, and when I watched it again, again, I was thinking, hey, yeah, man, it's too big. If it was radio, that'd be fine. If it was stage, that'd be fine. But because you can clearly see these characters and the expressions and the line where you can do close-ups and far-off shots and all these things, I feel like when he's, saying poetry and everything and playing the violin, it has to be scaled down because that just sounds a little too corny, a little too big. It doesn't have to be that big. So originally I didn't like this character, but watching it again, as soon as the action starts, as soon as they're doing the chase, he did really grow on me, and I actually was saying, okay, this actually is a good performance. When he has to improvise really fast, and he's both scared but kind of excited, he's almost getting a rush out of it. And again, there is almost this psychotic side that kind of comes out when he goes into what was it, like the firework factory or whatever that was? The explosives or whatever. And I think he sees it as like a firework factory, and he gets really excited, and you see his point of view. It did suddenly really, really turn on. And when I was watching it again, I did realize, okay, actually this character is really growing on me, and I think that's gonna be the big element to this character, is that I think you gotta just give him time. I think they gotta figure him out a little bit more. And I'm not just talking about the actor. I'm talking about, the direction for him, and stuff like that. I think that's the one thing. They just have to kind of get the feel for this character a little bit more. Like I said, watching it the first time, I didn't really get into him. Watching it again, I did go, okay, I see what they're doing with this, and it is legit work. I mean, you could see what they're trying to do originally the whole time. And again, I don't envy him, because it's a very difficult character to bring to life. I mean, writing it on the page, you could probably, get a sense of this character and what they're like. I mean, this would be fine in a book and everything. But doing something like this with animation, especially with animation where you have people, again, associated with kid stuff and everything, you don't want it to be, you want this joy that you're watching something animated. Man, I'm so glad this is animated, but you don't want to feel the disadvantages of being connected to something that's seen as kid stuff. And when you have a character that both looks and sounds very much like the character from Cats Don't Dance, and these other archetypes that are very similar, that are made specifically for kids for the most part, that can be a little difficult. It can be a little difficult to get into. But like I said, as it kept going, and even after the chase, he does really warm up. I like him trying to, maybe I can wring out some of the alcohol from my shirt here and stuff like that. Like that's a decent lie and everything. I feel like the more they're with this character, both the director and the actor work with this character, the more they're going to find their footing. I think of something like, I don't know, Futurama or something like that, where Billy West, I mean, one of the great voice actors. If you listen to Fry at the beginning, it's pretty insufferable. It's really rough to listen to him. But then later, I mean, I think within that first season, definitely by the second season, they find their footing, and it works out really, really well. There's memes on this character now. So I'm not saying this is a character that now I dislike. I did originally, but now he's really warmed up to me quite a bit. But I don't think they're quite there yet, where all the other characters, they feel like they're there. They got them figured out, which again, for a pilot, for a first episode, is very impressive, because that usually isn't the case. Usually at least half the characters are like the main character in this. So it is impressive that they had them so figured out early on, but with that main character, like I said, I think they're gonna warm their way into his skin. They're gonna figure out a little bit more. They're gonna be more comfortable with him. I think that's the thing. The character doesn't feel comfortable yet, where everyone else has this real comfortable feel to how they move, to their performances and everything. Again, not to say he's badly acted or badly animated or badly written or anything like that. There's just this comfort that all the other characters have. I feel like the main character isn't there yet, but I feel like he will be. I feel like as more goes on, they're gonna get there. So I am glad I watched it again, because I did come to that realization as it went on. I'm like, okay, actually, I do like this guy, but like I said, I think you can still have a little wear and tear in the character. There should be wear and tear in something like this with the characters. That's what it feels like. It feels like the other characters have already gone through something. They have a past. They have all this stuff. And this character, like, they just sort of threw on and said, does this work? Okay, this archetype. This is our archetype. This is our version of it. And it's like, okay, but everyone else feels fleshed out. And I feel like he's on the way, but he's not there yet. But I feel like he will be, again, with This is a very talented actor, talented group, talented director, all that stuff. They'll get there. But with that said, I have seen some of the shorts as well that are a lot like that last third where it's very slow moving, but I like these people. I like this world. I don't mind that it's slow moving. It reminds me a little bit of Better Call Saul versus something like Breaking Bad, where a lot of people like Better Call Saul, but they're saying, man, Breaking Bad, a lot more stuff was going on. And I agree, but I like the people more in Better Call Saul. So I'm willing to put up with how slow it's going. And it's the same thing with this, where there definitely is action in it, and it's cool, it's awesome, and very stylized. But I'm not going to act like, again, it is something like Has Been Hotel, Hell of a Boss, where just something crazy is going on all the time. But it shouldn't have to be. It should be its own thing. And obviously, it's brought in a lot of fans to it. It's brought people into this world. Like I said, this is a huge hit, and I feel like there are a lot of places you can go with it, and I hope it does keep, I'm sure it is, it's gonna keep that back and forth of pacing where, yes, there's going to be stuff that's action-packed, but then there's going to be those slower moments where you do kind of feel like you're just in a bar talking with somebody, like maybe on a slow night or something like that, or maybe at a bar on a very hopping night where everybody's dancing and stuff. So I want that variety in there. I like that variety, and I like we're getting that not only with this, but also Knights of Guinevere, where it isn't always trying to throw something in your face to keep your attention. It can go a little slower. It can mix things up a little bit. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more. I'm looking forward to where they're going to go with it, not just with the characters, but also obviously with Glitch and, their backing and stuff like that. So very excited to see, like I said, what's in the future for it. With that said, what are your thoughts? 2 years later, you've had plenty of time to think about it like I have. Did you really enjoy it? Did you think this is like the future of animation? There's so many possibilities with this, and this is like the best web animation you ever saw. Or did you hate it? Did you say having it be cats doesn't make any sense, and why is it anime? Prohibition sucks? I don't know. Do people not like Prohibition? I don't know. Well, the people that died it, I'm sure, don't like it, but that you couldn't get into it at all, or you somewhere in between where you say, you know what, I love the animation, this is kind of a cool idea, I'm curious enough to see where this is going. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Take care.